Hello guys, welcome back to another chess video. This is Amit here, and today I'll be showing you all analysis of a game of my subscriber. So it's going to be somewhat different today, so watch the video till the end. The game actually was played by my subscriber Mangrover and Volachila. Volachila was with the white pieces and Mangrover was with the black pieces, and actually he has sent me a couple of games, so I'll be analyzing those two games today. Actually in this game Volachila played d4 and Mangrover played d5 and c4, e6 and f3 and f6, g3, which is the standard queen's gambit difference. And actually here Mangrover played c5, which is also possible, but if pawn takes pawn, then he has to take with the bishop, then knight c3. There will be too much pressure on this pawn at the center, so usually people play c6 so that the pressure on the d5 square is actually neutralized. So they usually play c6 and try to remove the pressure on the c5 square, but he played c5, which is also fine. Bishop g2, bishop e7, now castle. These are all standard moves. There is not much of a disadvantage in this opening. E3 and c6. Now takes, and bishop takes c5. So here he has actually bishop is out and is in attacking position and is eyeing the e3 and the f2, but here knight c3 is played. He took the pawn, so here knight to a4 is played. He is attacking the bishop. Simple move which could have been played was bishop to e7, because here bishop to e7 gives him kind of solid position, because now if queen takes the rook, he simply is allowing the white rook to come to the open file, so the rook comes to the open file easily. So instead of that, he should have simply played, instead of capturing the queen, bishop to e7 was a simple move. Bishop to e7. Now if queen c2, then b5 can be played, or yeah, b5 is probably better, because if here, then knight takes the knight and bishop takes the rook, and b into a4 is actually two pieces for a rook, which is absolutely fine, and black can actually win this game because of the two minor pieces advantage. So it could have been played, but then knight has to come to c3. Then now if bishop b7 has to be played, I think, or b4 can also be played, attacking the knight again. So, and again he has to put his knight to e5, and bishop to b7 is absolutely fine, because knight e4, then rook here, and it's fine. Queen can actually take the bishop, but knight takes the knight, so he cannot actually get knight. He has to get knight a4, then bishop to b7, then queen simply takes the pawn. But here you can see that when this kind of opening is played, then the queen actually is stuck in the open file. So black is absolutely fine here in this position. He can, and the white bishops are actually troubled, because they don't have a perfect square for them to move, and bishop here, actually white bishop is actually remaining at the home position. So black can actually take advantage of it, since his pieces are in the open. He can play rook here, and then queen to a5, and another rook to d8, and he can try to attack this square. Queen to a5 is simply, if queen takes the pawn, then queen to a5 is simply winning, because now he has to play either b3 or queen b3. If queen b3 is played, this knight on the a4 is actually stuck. And also if b3 is played, then bishop to a3 and this rook is attacked. And if queen takes the knight, then queen is also trapped, because a queen cannot move here or anywhere, it can't move. So he cannot take the knight as well, so he has to come back, then bishop simply takes the rook. So all these moves was a possibility if black had not exchanged the queen. So black was mangrover, and he did not exchange the queen, and he actually exchanged the queen instead of now bishop a4. Instead of bishop taking the bishop taking back to e7, he simply could have actually, he should have actually taken bishop to e7. Instead he exchanged, and which was kind of mistake from black's point of view. So bishop to d2, this is actually slightly minus for black, because his bishop is on the d7, it has not much open position. Now the threat is also bishop taking the f6 square and rook taking the d7 square. So he brought the rook from a8 to d8, and b3 is played. Now I think he is simply a pawn up, and he should simply play a6 and guard his pieces. Now if knight b6, bishop here. Anyways, the bishop on the c8 is actually very bad, so he can afford to give up the bishop. And also if rook takes the rook, then if knight takes the bishop, rook takes the bishop, and he is actually winning in this position. Instead, what he did, he took the pawn, then he pushed the pawn to b5. Now you can see that the knight on the c6 is actually guarded only by the bishop, and if rook takes the bishop and rook takes the bishop, it is actually inviting a lot of tactics from white side. So here knight b2, bishop d8, and h6. h6 was a move which was actually played too early, I think. So h6 should not have been played. Now instead of that, a5 could have been much better. a5 guarding the pawn on the b4 could have been much better, but he played h6, knight c4, knight d5. Now white is exchanging of the knight so that he can get the pawn on the a7. So he got it as well. Even this position is rather equal, but the pawn on b4 is falling, because bishop is attacking the knight. If bishop takes the knight, then rook takes the bishop, then bishop takes the pawn, and he's attacking the rook as well. So he's actually having advantage. But here also the exchanging of the bishop for strong, the f6 bishop is actually very strong, and it need not have been exchanged for this knight. Instead he could have actually tried bishop e7 going back, or going back is not good, but he has to try to exchange of as many pieces as possible. But instead he exchanged the knight for the bishop, and here comes the final blow. He played rook d6, which was not that acceptable because of bishop d4, and he's skewer. The rook and the rook are in the diagonal of the bishop, and it's a skewer because if knight can't take this because of the rook taking the rook. So this was one of the game which he had sent me, and another game also he had sent me. In this game he actually lost it because of bishop to b4, And another game he was actually playing white. Let me open the game. And here he is actually white. Here for c4, black actually played f5, e6, knight c3, f5, g3, and here it's all playable. Actually here d5 was played, so he took the pawn on the d5 instead of taking the pawn on the d5. Playing d4 was much better, I feel, because you have to always maintain pressure in the center and not exchange of all the pieces, because maintaining pressure gives you much advantage. As you maintain pressure, you get more advantage in the center. So he actually took the pawn. It is not much of a difference, it doesn't make much of a difference, but actually usual thing is you maintain pressure in the center. So he took d4, bishop d6, castle, bishop, queen e7, bishop d5, bishop e6, e3, knight b d7, and here I don't know why a4 was played, because a4 weakens the square on the b4, and it becomes separate to the knight. If knight comes to b4, then it's monster there, because if a5, then knight b4, then he controls a lot of square on the queen side, and it's a threat, because now bishop is also not on d2, and bishop has moved to g5 square. So it's not much of a threat, but he played a4, weakening the b4 square. Actually the b4 square is now weak, and castles, rook b1 and a6. Now he is planning to push b5. Black is planning to push b5. Mangrover was white and he played b4. He didn't check that bishop is actually attacking the pawn twice, so queen is guarding it, so he pushed it and he lost a pawn. Knight e2 and a5, bishop takes the knight, which is absolutely fine, because anyways the bishop is actually trapped, which if h6 is played, then he has to take the one of the piece. So he took the knight and queen takes. Now here already the bishop can't be touched, bishop on the b4 can't be touched, and his piece is actually solidified there. He could actually go for BVG 61, actually could go for b5 and creating two passes on the queen side, but he didn't go for it and he played knight e2. Now he is retreating all the pieces, so he took b6. Now his position is solid. So how he has to convert it to victory was up to him. He should have actually tried rook f d8, f c8 and or rook a c8, and actually pushed rook f c8 would have been much better, and push the pawn to c5 and then c4 and solidify his position. But he played rook a to e8, trying to attack the e3 pawn, but e3 pawn won't fall because white has a lot of resources to guard the e3 pawn. So he had to actually play rook f c8, and the idea could be anything. He may play c5 and then if knight here c4. This could have given him considerable advantage, and rook b8 and then b5. Every move could have led him to victory. White has no other comeback. Only move he can play is knight to e5, which is also fine, because here queen d6 can be played and knight takes the bishop. Anything is fine for black, but he didn't play rook f to c8. Instead he played rook a to e8, prematurely attacking the pawn, because we already know white has enough resources to guard the pawn, but he simply attacked it. So rook here, Actually here exchanging of the white bishop was not that advisable, because black is simply having issues with the bishop, because all the pawns of black are on the white light square, so it's better not to allow exchange of this piece. He has only diagonal is d1 to h5 diagonal. Only this diagonal is actually free for him. Rest of the diagonals he is blocked actually, so it was not advisable to exchange of the bishop, but he exchanged of it, and king takes. Now he pushes the g4, then this all the light squares become weak, so it was not advisable. But Mangrover defended well. Mangrover was with white pieces and he defended well. c5 was played, takes, knight takes, exchanging of the knight as well, and here rook b5. Now simply d4 could have been victory, or yeah, d4 could have been victory. Why? Because if takes, then pawn takes. Now if queen takes, then pawn takes. Now he has two passers against a single passer. Now he can give check here and here, and he could try to convert it to victory. Instead of pushing the pawns, he can try to play something different and push the victory, but he actually played c5, actually making it uncomfortable for him to push the d5 pawn. So he took rook f7, dribbling on this file. Now pushing the pawn. Pushing the pawn made him lose another pawn. So here, instead of going back to attack this pawn, he could have actually taken this pawn. So if king comes here, then now you can actually, once rook takes, pawn takes pawn and queen, then here rook attacking the pawn, and rook, queen goes to a8, then simply queen here, or rather you can try to attack this pawn. This might have been a very good game for black actually, since his pawn is on the e3 square and white king is open. So instead he actually didn't take the pawn and he attacked the a5 pawn. So takes. Now it's actually white is having an advantage, because he has an extra pawn. So here check, and he is now, Mangrover is actually white piece, and he actually attacked the black. He is attacking the black pawn. So guarding, check, and it's almost victory for black. The rest of the game, I don't think so there is a necessity to see the game, because it's easily white is actually winning. Now here he had to play, I think, queen to h8 here, queen here, 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 and it's victory. If he goes here, then takes, queen takes. Exchanging of the queen is much better going into an end game. So sorry, he has to move it here, or here also he can move, and then now if king comes here, simply push the pawn and it's victory. But he actually played, what happened in the game was, he took the pawn, check here, queen to a7. He didn't give check on the a8, he gave check on the f6, queen rook, and he gave check, and his opponent missed this move, and he gave the queen, and he actually lost the game. So actually there were a lot of complications in both the games. And yeah, if any of you to want me to analyze your games as well, you can send it to me on chessvideos794@gmail.com. So that's it for today. Hope you like this video. If you like this video and have not subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe. Thank you.